Greetings. Today I'd like to demonstrate how to set up Purchase Kanban parts. This process will automatically create a purchase order release on the associated PO, effectively replacing the need for Kanban cards or requisitions and eliminating the need for buyer intervention to reorder. You do not need advanced material, AMM, and you do not have to run MRP to implement this. For my example, I'll use a special case of stainless steel mesh gloves. These are higher priced items and will be stored in the stockroom. When employees require new gloves, I'll use issue miscellaneous material to charge the expense to the appropriate department. Now you'll notice that I will be demonstrating this in the Kinetic UI. This is also available in Classic, and I believe it goes back all the way to Vantage 8. For my example, I've set up that stainless steel mesh glove, and it is set up as purchased. It is a stock item, and it is quantity bearing, so I can track the usage on this. And if I go to my sites information, I don't have any minimum, max, or safety set up at the site level. I'm going to actually set this up at the warehouse bin level. And in my case, I actually created an auto-replenishment buyer. So if I look at this buyer, I've done this simply to make the process easier to send out the releases to the supplier as they are automatically generated. And I'll get more into that later on. So I've got the auto replenish buyer. I've added all of my buyers as authorized users, so any of them can use this functionality. You could also set PO limits. Just remember that we're going to be adding releases to this, so you would have to have your PO limit set appropriately to account for this PO. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and create a purchase order to do my seed inventory. If I looked at my part, I can see that my minimum order quantity is 10, and it's a 10-day lead time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll actually say I want 20 of them in stock for now. So I'm going to do my purchase order, a new PO. I am going to change my buyer on here to that auto replenishment buyer, and you'll see why this is a good feature to have a little bit later in the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and set my due date till tomorrow because I know they're going to drop some off. The supplier in this case is Globe. So I'm going to save that. Go into lines detail. I'm going to add my new line and get my part number here. And I'm going to order 20 of them. So you can see these gloves are our list price, or our cost is $25 a pair. So I'm going to go ahead and save this purchase order, and I'm going to approve it. Now, one of the other things that I do need to, before I go any further, is to make sure that I have a Kanban type for purchase orders. So in my Kanban area, I've got a Purchase Kanban. And in here, it doesn't matter what the code is. I suggest you don't use any special characters in there. The description is simply Purchase Kanban. My action is purchase. And I've opted to update the PO release schedule for this instance. So this will automatically create a release. There are other methods of doing this Kanban if you want these to show up in your buyer workbench instead. But for this case, I don't even want to see that release. I'm okay with you just with a release being sent directly to the supplier for this. So my PO number here is 4251, and I'm actually going to associate this on my part warehouse. So if I go to my warehouse detail, I'm going to set this up as my purchased Kanban, and I'll have my initial minimum. I'm buying 20, so I'll have the initial and my minimum at 20. Maybe I'll leave 5 for my safety stock. And at this point, I don't know that I need a maximum, so I'll put 40 in there. And then this replenishment Kanban quantity, when I had set this up, the minimum quantity the supplier will send is 10. So I'm going to put that as my replenishment quantity. You do have to set up a primary bin for all of these transactions. So this is where I'm going to keep that stock. And then this is where you tie your purchase order to your purchase Kanban. So there's my PO number and here's my line. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. So next I'm going to receive that original purchase order. So I'm going to go into receipt entry. And do a new receipt for my PO number and whatever my packing slip number is. And I am actually going to do a mass receipt for these. I'm going to select my line. I'm going to get all, receive all, and set all to the locations and process. So now if I go back to my part master, and look at my activity, you can see I have 20 on hand. So the other thing that happened when I did my receipt is this purchase order. Now, if I refresh the screen, you'll notice that this purchase order went to closed. That's okay, because when I dip below my minimum on hand, it will actually go ahead and reopen this PO to add a new release to it. So let's take a look at that. Let's go ahead and issue miscellaneous material. And this also, if you weren't using this as miscellaneous material, it could be that you are back flushing off of a job, you're manually issuing it to a job, anything that's going to drive that inventory below the minimum. So put my part number in here. And I have 20 in here. Now when I set up my part for my warehouses, if I drop below 20, I'm expecting to see a new release added to my purchase order. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this below 20. So we're issuing 5. And I'm going to do this as a miscellaneous issue, we'll say to the production department. And I'm going to save this. So now my on hand is currently at 15. If I were to go ahead and look at the time phase on this, you can see that I had 20 that were received in. It already created my new release on here just by me going ahead and doing that issue material. So now if I go ahead and look at this purchase order, you can see that it's back to being open. And if I look at my line releases, I've got 2 releases. This one is no longer open, it's actually closed. And if I go on to my second release, I've got an open release for the quantity of 20. That's to get me up to the numbers that I needed to accommodate both actually my reorder point, which is the minimum on hand plus the safety. Now, the other thing that we can do is we can set these purchase orders up as a mass print because this is a new release. If I had advanced print management route running, I could send this to mass print. And then the reason that I set up just that one buyer as auto replenishment is I can set this up in batch because we want these to go out automatically whenever there is one flagged for printing, and then let the buyers decide whether or not they want to send out their or route their individual purchase orders. So in here, I can actually set this up to schedule, and I can do this as an hourly check. Do I need to send out any new purchase orders? I could create another schedule that maybe says, noon or, 4 p.m. and then set this up as recurring on that schedule. Now, you probably wouldn't do it hourly, but you could set the schedule that suits your business needs. And then we could just go ahead and do this printing. If it had routing on there, we would pick a routed style and enable the routing on it as well. So now, if I look at my time phase, right now I've got another 20 of these coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that receipt for the 20. Now that should satisfy what I need for now. So I'm going to receive that PO again. And a new receipt. So that's my second receipt from here. Again, I'm going to do a mass receipt. So now if I go ahead and look at, once again, my activity on this part, I've got 35 in the warehouse. And then if we go back to our part details, look at our warehouse detail. My initial is 20, my threshold is 5, and I'm going to replenish minimum of 10. So what happened before was, because I had that threshold in there, my initial PO probably should have been for a quantity of 25. So if I have another department come up and request for some, and really what I want to drop this down is below the 25. So I'm going to go ahead and do another miscellaneous issue. So I have 35 on hand. I'm going to say that 17 of these were taken by, let's say, our engineering department. So now I'm down to 18 on hand. And if I look at my time phase query, it's already going ahead and creating that third release that I need. So again, I didn't have to run MRP to have this happen, and I did not have to run PO suggestions for it to trigger this. I do remember in earlier versions of Vantage, you did actually have to run PO suggestions, but as of this version in Kinetic, you do not need to. And if I had that mass print set up for my auto replenish buyer, the PO release would already be sent out to my supplier. So I hope you find automated purchase replenishment another shiny tool for your toolbox. Happy planning.